Let's go to John to kick us off. He says they're flying under the radar, but the Washington Nationals are 8-2 in their last 10 games against the Braves, Tigers, and Marlins. That's 2 playoff teams from last season.
Well, Washington's going to be out here as Padres, once they finish up in Philadelphia. They come back here, and the Washington Nationals come in for 3. They're force-feeding all their kids. You know, C.J. Abrams had a pretty good season. Mackenzie Gore's had a pretty good season. I mean, they're just jamming all their young guys on the field, and they're scuffling to try to get to the 500 level and stay there. You know, the Braves have had so many injuries. You know, just not losing Spence Strider, the ace of the pitching staff, and then losing Ronald Acuna on top of that. But with the Braves just lost Michael Harris, their star center fielder. So they got an awful lot of injuries, but the Braves are starting to play better. And Detroit has been a bit of a disappointment. I thought somebody would, when we did the baseball preview, I said Detroit's going to be the team to watch in the Central. And instead it's turned out to be Milwaukee, which just absolutely shocked me because they lost all their pitchers. And in Kansas City with the Padre Rentals, they've had a really good season. Not that anybody in the Central is going to go anywhere in postseason play, but so Detroit's just not quite been what I thought they would be, because I thought they were about ready to arrive. But Kansas City, by virtue of getting Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, and have stayed free of injuries, Kansas City looks like the real deal.
Yeah, they look a lot better. I'll tell you what. But imagine if the Nationals make the playoffs and the Padres don't. I mean, that could be the end of it for AJ Preller. And then, you know, the Tigers, what the hell happened to Javi Baez? I mean, he was really good with the Cubs.
He's got a back injury.
But he hasn't done anything for a few years.
Hasn't done anything recently. He's on the disabled list with a spine injury. It's hitting 188. And they gave him a lot of money.
Yeah, a ton.
So that's where we are. John, thank you for joining us on Fans Forum. Next question.
Okay, let's go to Chris. He goes, lots going on in sports, but it's time to talk about the biggest bleeping story of the last 20 years. Joey Chestnut, the most dominant athlete of our time, banned from defending his mustard belt crown all over his affiliation with vegan wieners. Whoever wins in his absence will have the largest asterisk known to mankind this July 4th. React to me.
Okay, here's the question. Every time I go shopping at Vaughn's, you know, we hamburgers and hot dogs and ham and all that. I always see the Nathan's hot dogs, and that instantly brings me back to Joey Chestnut. Now, the burning question, and we won't have enough time to talk about this today, but put this in the hopper. We'll talk about it on Thursday. Is a hot dog eating contest on July 4th really a sport?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Do you spend any minutes of your life that you'll never, ever get back by watching Joey Chestnut down 67
Oh, it's like watching a train wreck. You have to watch it if it's on.
Okay. The guy, like I said, he does this, the co-host out in left field. He thinks watching Joey Chestnut eat 67 hot dogs and buns is a level of sport. So I'll throw that out to you. You can respond next time we have the podcast.
Well, remember Kobayashi?
Yes.
He was the little Japanese guy, and I couldn't believe he could fit it all in there. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a goofy sport, but it's amazing how they have eating contests for just about any kind of food product out there.
Okay, so he thinks Joey Chestnut and hot dogs is a sport. You can agree or disagree with him. Got another one here. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do. Let's go to Emmanuel. He goes, what shortstops are there on the trade block? Will the Dodgers have to overpay to acquire shortstop since they have the biggest need?
Well, they've got a need there, but they've got Miguel Rojas, the former Miami Marlins, having a really good season. Good glove. Didn't hit much in Miami. Didn't hit much at all last year. He's batting .288 right now. He is going to be the starting shortstop. And they just recalled Miguel Vargas, who was a second baseman shortstop that they converted into an outfielder this year in the minor leagues. They've just recalled him. The one that I'm surprised because of the injury issue, they've not brought back James Outman. And Outman's hitting like 367 at Oklahoma City, and he didn't hit at all at the beginning of the season. So I don't think there's a trade coming there, but the Dodgers have just continued dialogue with the White Sox about the trade for former All-Star outfielder Luis Robert. I think that's the trade's going to happen.
Well, a lot of Dodger fans on social media are not excited about Luis Robert at all, you know, but what about Bo Bichette to the Dodgers? I mean, the Blue Jays are unloading their team, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going to start a fire sale. Their Guerreros might get traded too, but they just got Kevin Biggio, who's a second baseman, third baseman, because they have the injury problem with Max Muncy, and he's had another setback. So he's had 3 different issues with the oblique rib cage area. So the Dodgers are really beat up. They can probably make one trade. But I think Luis Robert He's got a track record. Now, he's been hurt with the White Sox a couple times, a couple years in a row, but this guy was an all-star. And I think you put him around a good team in a batting order like that, maybe they're going to go ahead and make this trade, and he's still at a fairly affordable contract. So that's fascinating to see. But they'll have to give up players.
How long will Mookie be out? Like 6 weeks, maybe?
Well, they said fractured hand, but no surgery. So maybe that's 3 weeks, or maybe it's 5. But I think the scarier injury is Yamamoto. When you're talking inflamed rotator cuff, that means you shut him down. That means maybe plasma platelet, or it might be cortisone. That means that's at least 2 to 3 weeks before he can touch a ball. Then you got to rebuild them up and hope there's no flare-up. So, I mean, we could be talking 6 weeks. We could be talking 6 months with Yamamoto.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and like I said, effective at breakfast this morning, the Dodgers now have 15 players on the disabled list.
15. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Okay, let's go to social media here. We got a bunch more people that want to get involved. Let's talk about the Chargers. And this is from Trevor B. Maybe it's Trevor Bauer. I don't know. Everyone still wants to cry about Spanos after he just paid big money for a big name coach. And we're in year 7 of people not admitting that is San Diego's own damn fault for not voting on the Chargers' new stadium. Spanos got it on the ballot. The county did everything they could to run him out of town. Not much he could have done. San Diego myself, but the whining and complaining is pathetic after all these years. Get over it and get over yourselves. If the city wanted them, they would have went to games. They would have voted.
Trevor, I didn't know there were 2 box seats out in left field. So is a seat out there for him in addition to you, or did he just hit a foul ball?
Yeah, I don't know.
Trevor, the reality is the city of San Diego had given Spanos enormous things over the years. He never spent a penny on any upgrades at what became Qualcomm Stadium, San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium. He never did anything to improve the facility. He would walk around with his hand out. I own the team. Give me, give me. Have you forgotten the ticket guarantee crisis on top of that? That's an issue. The city and county put together a public committee to study how to finance a new stadium. And working with the NFL and the G3 fund, they came up with a plan in which the city and county put money into the pot. The NFL G3 money came in. Spanos would have to put $300 million of his own money. He turned him down. He refused to go to the negotiating table. His eyes were always on LA. And at the last minute, he said, whoa, we'll consider building on a postage stamp downtown at Tailgate Park. Tailgate Park is about this big. Nobody in the NFL is building a stadium on that piece of paper. Your new stadium's got all types of businesses around it, a.k.a. what's Petco Park become?
Yeah.
That's what you do. He put that thing at Tailgate Park on the ballot so it would get defeated, and then it could go to the NFL and said, we tried, nobody helped us. That's not the honest to God's truth, because that committee that was headed up by Jim Steig, the longtime NFL executive, had the funding in place, and Spanos refused to go to the table. So he goes up there. He's going to build in L.A. Owner said, no, you're not. They gave it to Kroenke. Kroenke built the stadium. He's a tenant. Dean, here's where you're going to play your home games. Put your rent check over there in that mailbox right there. Goes directly to Stan Kroenke. So I'm sorry, Trevor, but you're out in left field with John Riley on this one. This city and county, that time, did everything they could humanly do to build a stadium, and that owner wanted nothing to do. He had his eyes set up there. And they're up there, and they are on the periphery of sports recognition. First Family of Football's team is in last place. Nobody is a massive Charger fan, not to the tune the Rams are, because the Rams went to the Super Bowl once they got to L.A. So I'll just tend to disagree with you there and enjoy the day out in left field with John Riley. That's the honest to God's truth.
Well, you know, Spanos, it was clear that he wanted to go to LA. I mean, he was just going through the motions in San Diego, the ballot proposition. Who was that spokesman he had for the longest time?
Mark Fabiani.
Yeah. And he was he was a spokesman for other politicians.
He was a henchman.
Yeah. And he was, a double talk guy, but, get over it. I mean, imagine telling the Supersonics fans in Seattle, just get over it, follow him in Oklahoma City. I mean, the fans are rightfully pissed off because they had 55 years here, and then they just walked out the door. So
they sold out the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, you could not get a ticket during the Bobby Ross Super Bowl era. You couldn't get a ticket during Marty Ball's era.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Trevor, you're entitled to your own opinion, even if it's the wrong one, at least on this topic on the table. One more social media shot.
Okay, let's go. Caitlin Clark, and this is from John. He says, Fever ticket sales up 4,000% over last year. Let's get rid of Clark.
Well, she's getting bashed. She got hammered again with flagrant fouls. This whole Angel Reese thing is so out of control. And by the way, Caitlin Clark's Fever beat the Chicago Sun and Angel Reese over the weekend.
Good.
So, appreciate the greatness of the individual player. Understand what she has meant to the business model of the WNBA. And maybe this story will go away. Maybe this will get old. I give her credit. She's not lashing back verbally about all the cheap shots. And she did finally make a statement. Let's not drag my name into any conversation, AKA racism. Because there are people bashing her. Oh, everybody loves her because she's white and she's made a big difference because she's white. No, she made a big difference because she's a great female basketball player. And she has brought to the league all the things that the Angel Reeses of the world never had in the prior 5, 10, 15 years. This thing has arrived just because of her style and her accomplishments. Is she the best player in the league? No, she's not. She's a good player, but she's brought such interest and such following to the games. All these games are sold out. Some of the NBA teams are playing in 4,500 seat college arenas are moving their games to the NBA stadium and selling them out at 19,000.
Yeah, good for them.
So she's a great player. And she's learning to play at this next level. This next level is really hard. But all this junk, all the taunting and the trash talking by all the other women, unless we're going to sell separate tickets and just have a cat fight out at midcourt at halftime of a game, what are we doing here?
Well, we're talking about the WNBA.
Sure.
So I think from a PR perspective, this is all kind of working out okay. That hard foul that Angel Reese had was no different than what I see in the NBA.
Oh, do you think Larry Bird got clubbed a little bit in the head?
Yeah, from Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah, exactly.
So this was actually tame compared to that.
Well, unless Caitlin gets up off the floor and throws a punch, then maybe that'd be interesting.
But it was weird. I was watching the press conference of Caitlin Clark and two of her teammates, and she's saying, "Oh, I'm just playing ball," and just kind of giving the standard lines. But the body language of her two teammates, they were off on the edge of the table, and one of them had her arms crossed and was kind of making weird faces.
Well, Clark is the one that gets all the questions. That's why.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, it's interesting how this is going beyond the scope of sports, and, it's racism, it's sexism, it's sexual orientation. Everyone's trying to make it into something bigger than it is. I think the WNBA should just be as happy as hell that we're talking about them.
She's balling. She's a really good player.
Yes, she is.
She's not a star yet in the league, but she's a really good player.
I agree.
Hey, listen, we thank